an endless, sun-bleached void, where the horizon vanishes into a haze of heat and humidity. It is March 2013, and the air is thick with tension. Two Iranian F-4 Phantoms, relics of a bygone era, are screaming through the atmosphere, their vintage J-79 engines leaving trails of black soot as they hunt a slow-moving American MQ-1 Predator drone. The Iranian pilots are confident, believing they are the apex predators in this sector, unchallenged in their pursuit of the unmanned surveillance craft. They do not know that they are being watched. They do not know that they are already dead men flying, spared only by the restraint of a ghost that has been stalking them for miles. This ghost is not a spirit, but a machine 20 tons of radar-absorbent composite and titanium, moving at Mach speeds without a whisper of warning. It is the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor, the most feared air superiority fighter in history, and it is about to introduce itself. The American pilot, Cole Kevin Showtime Sutterfield, sits encased in a cockpit that is less a workspace and more a fusion of man and computer, a glass bubble floating in the stratosphere. His aircraft, widely considered the crown jewel of American military aviation, has slipped into the airspace with the silence of a falling leaf. The Raptor's radar cross-section is often compared to a marble or a bumblebee. To the analog radars of the Iranian Phantoms, the sky ahead appears completely empty. Showtime maneuvers his jet with terrifying precision, sliding directly underneath one of the Phantoms. He is so close he can inspect the rivets on the belly of the aging fighter, so close he can visually confirm the weapons hanging from its hardpoints. The Iranian pilot looks out his canopy, scanning left and right, seeing nothing but blue. He has no idea that the most advanced weapon system on Earth is currently flying formation in his blind spot. Weapon bays closed but ready. After confirming the Phantom's armament, Showtime decides to end the charade. He banked the Raptor left, the thrust vector in nozzles of his Pratt & Whitney F-119 engines, flexing to push the nose up with effortless grace. He rises alongside the Phantom, appearing out of nowhere as if materializing from the ether. The Iranian pilot turns his head and freezes. There, hanging in the air beside him, is the distinct diamond-shaped silhouette of the F-22. The radio crackles to life, bridging the silence between the two epochs of aviation. Showtime's voice is calm, devoid of the adrenaline that surely courses through the veins of the man he has just cornered. "You really ought to go home," he says. It is not a request. It is a polite suggestion from a god to a mortal. The psychological impact is immediate and devastating. The Phantoms break off instantly, diving away and fleeing back to Iranian airspace. They had been hunting a drone, only to discover they were the prey in a game they didn't even know had started. This encounter, bloodless and brief, encapsulates the terrifying mystique of the F-22 Raptor. It is the unfair fight, the unseen knife, the dominance that doesn't need to fire a shot to win. To understand the weight of that moment, one must understand the machine itself. The F-22 was born from the paranoia of the Cold War, designed to counter a Soviet superthreat that never fully materialized. It was built to replace the F-15 Eagle, not just to beat the enemy, but to dominate them so completely that they wouldn't even bother taking off. The engineering is a masterclass in contradictions. It is jagged yet smooth, heavy yet buoyant. Its engines, the Pratt & Whitney F-119 PW100s, are engineering marvels capable of generating 35,000 pounds of thrust each. Crucially, they allow the Raptor to supercruise to fly at speeds exceeding Mach 1.8 without using afterburners, while other fighters have to dump raw fuel into their exhaust to break the sound barrier, lighting up the sky like a torch and burning through their gas in minutes. The Raptor glides at supersonic speeds, cool and efficient, hunting its prey from high altitude while retaining the fuel to fight and return home. But speed is only half the equation. The true magic lies in its agility. The Raptor is the first aircraft to combine stealth with thrust vector. The nozzles at the rear of the plane can tilt 20 degrees up or down, manipulating the direction of the engine's thrust. This allows the F-22 to perform maneuvers that defy the laws of aerodynamics as understood by conventional pilots. It can slide through the air like a drift car, point its nose at a target while moving in a completely different direction, and recover from stalls that would send any other jet into a flat spin. In a dogfight, this means the Raptor can bring its nose to bear on a target instantly, firing an AIM-9X Sidewinder missile at an enemy who thinks they are safely behind it. Yet, the tragedy and the triumph of the F-22 is that its designers worked tirelessly to ensure it would never need to use this agility. If an F-22 pilot finds themselves in a visual dogfight, merging with an enemy, something has gone wrong. The Raptor's doctrine is first look, first shot, first kill. It's an APG-77A ESA, radar concealed swiftly targets hundreds of miles away, while its stealth coating ensures it remains invisible. It is a sniper in a world of knife fighters. The Raptor's combat debut, however, was not against a peer adversary in the high skies of Europe, but against insurgents in the dust of the Middle East. In September 2014, the invisible fighter went to war for the first time as part of Operation Inherent Resolve. It was a strange irony that the world's premier air-to-air killer dropped its first ordnance on a command and control center in Syria. The F-22 was used as a quarterback in the crowded, chaotic skies over Syria, while its bomb bays opened to drop GPS-guided JDAMs on ISIS targets. Its sensors were doing the real work. The Raptor soaked up electronic emissions, radar signals, and radio traffic, fusing this data into a clear picture of the battlefield that was beamed to older, less capable aircraft like the F-15 and F-16. It was the eyes and ears of the coalition, a silent guardian that allowed the older jets to operate safely in airspace saturated with Russian and Syrian surface-to-air missiles. It was in these Syrian skies that the Raptor began its silent, tense waltz with the Russian Air Force. The airspace over Syria became a melting pot of geopolitical tension, with American F-22s and Russian Su-35 flankers often sharing the same patch of sky. The Su-35 is a formidable machine, Russia's top-tier dogfighter, highly maneuverable and heavily armed. On paper, it is a rival. In practice, the encounters proved the Raptor's dominance. Russian pilots, often aggressive and unprofessional, would attempt to bait the Americans into a dogfight. They would perform aggressive maneuvers, crossing the noses of American jets, trying to provoke a reaction. The F-22 pilots, disciplined and secure in their technological superiority, rarely took the bait. Instead, they used their stealth to shadow the Russians. There are reports of Russian Su-35s flying combat patrols, completely unaware that an F-22 was flying just a few miles off their wing, tracking them, locking them up, and recording their electronic signatures. One particularly tense incident occurred in late 2017, when F-22s were tasked with protecting coalition ground forces from Russian Su-35 attack aircraft that had strayed across the line near the Euphrates River. The Su were flying dangerously, threatening friendly forces. Two F-22s intercepted them, popping chaff and flares to get their attention, diving across their flight paths to force them to turn away. It was a high-stakes game of chicken. At one point, a Russian Su-35 arrived to protect its attack jets, resulting in a swirling visual engagement that lasted nearly an hour. The F-22s, despite being outnumbered and operating within visual range where their stealth advantage was negated, easily outmaneuvered the Russians, keeping their advantage until the intruders finally departed. The American pilots later remarked on the discipline required to hold fire, to use their aircraft as a physical barrier rather than a weapon, knowing that a single missile launch could spark a third world war. Far from the heat of the Middle East, the Raptor fights a different kind of battle, a cold, lonely war of attrition on the edge of the Arctic Circle. From Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska, F-22s are regularly scrambled to intercept Russian Tu-95 Bear bombers probing the edges of American airspace. These missions are a stark contrast to the complex engagements in Syria. Here, it is man and machine against the elements. The pilots fly for hours over the freezing expanse of the Bering Sea, relying on tanker support to stay aloft. The intercepts are routine but dangerous. The massive, propeller-driven Russian bombers are often escorted by their own fighters. The F-22s pull up alongside the Silver Giants, the pilots looking across the wingtips at the Russian crewmen in their turrets. These encounters are a ritual of the great powers, a flexing of muscles where the F-22 serves as the ultimate bouncer. The Russian crews know that the jet flying beside them could destroy their entire formation before they could even turn their turrets. Yet they wave, snap photos, and turn back. The message received loud and clear. In this silent war of deterrence, the Raptor has built a legacy not on the number of aces it has produced, but on the number of wars it has prevented. It is so capable that adversaries change their behavior simply because they know it might be in the area. But the strangest chapter in the Raptor's combat history would come not from a high-tech Russian fighter or a rogue nation's jet, but from a balloon. In early 2023, a massive high-altitude surveillance balloon from China drifted across the continental United States, sparking a diplomatic crisis and a media frenzy. As it floated at 60,000 feet, well above the operational ceiling of most fighter jets, the call went out to the F-22 squadrons at Langley Air Force Base. It was a mission that required the Raptor's unique ability to operate at extreme altitudes. On February 4, 2023, two F-22s, Calcines, Franco 1 and Luco 1, roared into the sky off the coast of South Carolina. The Calcines were a deliberate homage to Frank Luke Jr., the legendary Arizona balloon buster of World War I, a pilot who had earned the Medal of Honor for destroying German observation balloons. The lead Raptor climbed to 58,000 feet, the highest combat altitude ever recorded for an air-to-air kill. The pilot lined up the massive white sphere in his HUD. It was an absurd target for a multi-million-dollar stealth fighter designed to kill Soviet superjets, but the mission demanded precision. The pilot fired a single AIM-9X Sidewinder missile. The missile trailed white smoke as it streaked through the thin air, impacting the balloon's payload. The fabric shredded, and the massive craft collapsed, plummeting into the Atlantic Ocean. It was the F-22's first official air-to-air kill. The irony was not lost on the aviation community. The most sophisticated killing machine ever built, capable of engaging multiple targets beyond visual range, had scored its first victory against a slow-moving bag of gas, much like the biplanes of 1918. Yet, even this bizarre event highlighted the Raptor's dominance. No other fighter in the U.S. inventory could have comfortably cruised at that altitude, maneuvered with such control, and taken the shot with such impunity. It demonstrated that the F-22 was not just a relic of Cold War planning, but a versatile high-altitude platform capable of responding to threats that its designers never even imagined. The Frank Carlson became a badge of honor, a nod to history by the pilots of the future. As the years pass, the F-22 fleet is aging. Production was cut short at just 187 operational aircraft, a decision that many strategists now look back on with regret as global tensions rise. The Raptors have flown hard, their airframe stressed by the incredible G-forces of their maneuvers and the harsh environments they operate in. The maintenance crews work tirelessly to keep the skin of the aircraft pristine, as even a minor scratch in the stealth coating can compromise its invisibility. But despite its small numbers, the F-22 remains the gold standard. When the Air Force conducts red flag exercises, the F-22s are often handicapped, forced to fly with restricted radars, limited missiles, or starting from a disadvantageous position just to give the other pilots a fighting chance. When they fly fully unleashed, the results are often lopsided massacres, with blue air the good guys wiping out red air, the aggressors, without suffering a single loss. There is a tragic romance to the F-22 Raptor. It is a samurai sword in an age of drones and cyber warfare, an elegant, deadly, manual instrument of war. It is flown by a small cadre of pilots who know they are riding the absolute peak of internal combustion aviation. They describe the physical sensation of the launch, the way the thrust vectoring kicks them in the chest during a high G-turn, the eerie quiet of the cockpit as the active noise cancellation drowns out the roar of the engines. They talk about the god's eye view provided by the sensor fusion, the feeling of omniscience as they look down at the chaotic battlefield below, ordering the movement of lesser aircraft like chess pieces. In the end, the story of the F-22 Raptor is not defined by a massive air war, but by the silence it enforces. It is the watchman on the wall. From the sun-baked deserts of Syria, where it herded Russian flankers like sheep, to the frozen coasts of Alaska where it meets the bear, to the stratosphere where it popped a spy balloon, the Raptor has done its job. It has terrified the enemy into staying home. It has proven that the most effective weapon is the one that is so deadly, so advanced, and so feared that no one dares to challenge it to a fair fight. It is the ghost in the machine, the shadow in the clouds, the last thing an enemy pilot will never see.